Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of a Tailor-Made Life podcast, where every conversation is one step closer to designing the life that God has for you. I am your host, Taylor Renee, and as always, I'm so excited to have you back here with me. You guys, let's just get right into it, right? This episode is about how I once watched a coworker of mine almost ruin their career. The year was 2019. She and I were going back and forth, joking around about some private matters at work. And it just so happened that she said the joke out loud, and someone in our company with more seniority than her called her out in front of everyone, right? Like, we had been joking around and we were talking about some things that we probably shouldn't have talked about, but we were saying it to ourselves. She said it out loud to everyone in the room and got called out. Now, the second this happened, right, obviously it was so awkward. I felt the pit in my stomach. Like, I felt my stomach literally drop. I put my head down because if I'm honest, you guys, that could have easily been me, right? That could have easily been my name on the chopping block. Because back then I always had something to say. Right? Even when it wasn't necessary, even when it was negative, even when nobody asked for my opinion, I always felt like I had to be the loudest. I had to be the most vibrant in the room. I was constantly trying to find ways to be seen, right? Like hoping people would notice me, hoping people would validate me, hoping that, someone would just say, "Oh, Taylor, you're doing a great job," right? I was hoping that somebody would remember me. And so watching her get called out that day was the first time that I really realized that I was not a professional, right? I was performing for approval. And that is what we're talking about today, because I don't think that I'm alone in this, right? We've been in our professionalism series, and the last week we talked about how to read a room, right? What reading the room is, how to steward the room that you're currently in, all those great things. Now today, I want to talk about why trying to impress everyone is actually working against you. Again, last week was reading the room, right? This week is trying to understand and realize what you bring to the room as you are, and what it looks like to build a kind of professionalism that doesn't need an audience. But once you know what a room requires, there's a temptation to assimilate to that room, right? There's a temptation to then mold yourself, change who you are in order to fit into that room, to bring a performance, right? There's a temptation to bring a version of yourself that looks right instead of the one that is right. And so here's what we're going to get into. Now, before I go any further, I want some things to be made super clear, right? This whole series, this whole podcast essentially isn't about teaching you professionalism. My goal is never to teach you how to perform professionalism, right? This isn't something that you turn on when your boss walks in and out of the room. It's not a costume, right? The goal of this podcast is to help amplify the voice and the character that's already inside of you so clearly that others can see it. So when you hear this episode, when you hear, the topics and the things that we're discussing, I don't want you to just hear it, right? I want you to digest it into who you are. I want you to adopt it as a different perspective, as a different train of thought, right? My goal is to help us understand who we are in these spaces as Christians, as believers, as young women, as young men, as people of color, if you're a person of color. But if you're not, then yeah. So yeah, that's my disclaimer. Now, let's bring it back, right? Because there's a temptation there to want to perform when you are in professional settings. There's a trap, right? And so performing for approval is honestly something that I'm still battling, right? It's something that I'm still cognizant and aware of if I'm doing it, because it's so easy to just get caught up in it. Again, I was the one that always needed to have something to say, right? Like I would have slightly distracting behavior for attention, right? I was always kind of like slightly chasing validation in some way. And when you're in rooms, you get into these professional settings where everybody feels like they're miles and miles away from you, right? There is pressure. You always feel the need to prove that you're smart, to prove that you're capable, to prove that you belong, to always have something to say, to kind of say yes to everything. And I was that person. I was in these rooms, in these spaces where I felt like I did not belong. And so I had to go over and beyond to explain, to justify why I was there. And I'm here to tell you right now, that is performing. That is performance. That is what they call shucking and jiving, okay? Performing professionalism instead of actually being a professional. But there is a shift, right? Because again, performance versus actually being a professional. Performing as a professional requires a checklist of things that you have to do in order to put on a great show, right? In order to prove to people that you are worthy and capable of being in the room, right? True professionalism, being an actual professional, it's simply being trustworthy. That's it, right? So performing as a professional, you have this long laundry list of things that you have to check off every single day. Things that I was checking off, right? Do I look good? You know, am I talking loud enough? Am I saying funny things? Am I putting the attention back on myself? Am I trying to make sure everybody can see me? All of those things, right? Versus now, none of those things need to happen, right? All I focus on right now as a true professional is if my work is good, right? Is if the product and the thing that I'm speaking on, do I know it well? Can I speak to it? Can I advocate for the work that I do? Can I advocate for myself? Can I advocate for others? Right? That is professionalism. And it's simply being trustworthy. Can your coworkers and the people that you speak to, can they trust you? Can they trust the work that you're doing? Now, before in the previous episode, I mentioned something along those lines. Like everybody in the corporate space is watching everybody. Like everybody's watching you, this person, that person. Everybody's watching everybody, right? Why? Why are people watching you? Sometimes it's not to judge you. Sometimes they're trying to see if they can trust you. People are looking to see if they are able to depend on you and rely on the works and the things that you say. You don't need to impress everyone, right? You need to be trustworthy. And the real test of whether or not you can be trusted is when no one's watching, okay? Now, going back to the coworker story, right? Her and I were joking together. Now, were we alone? Yes. Should we have been doing it? No. But the version of her and the version of me that could have easily gotten called out was the no one's watching version of herself showing in public, right? So the version that wasn't supposed to get out is what got out. Why? Because that's who she was in private. Same thing with me, same thing with you. Eventually, who you are naturally is bound to come out, right? And so if you change your attitude, you change the intricacies of your character before no one, like as no one's watching, right? Then that is bound to show up, right? It's just like when an athlete goes to practice, right? Nobody sees the practices that the athlete goes through. They just see them winning, right? But it's the countless hours that they put in when no one was there. It's doing the reps. It's doing the work when no one's going to check it, when no one's going to watch you, when no one cares if it's done right. Are you still going to do it right? It's how you talk about a coworker, or how you talk about somebody when they're not in the room. Even if you know they would never hear it again, how do you talk about them? It's being honest about a mistake that no one saw, right? Professionalism is more so about your character. Yes, it's how reliable you are, how well you do your work, how you show up, how you carry yourself. But at the end of the day, professional is a person. What type of person are you? The type of person you are will then yield the type of professional that you are. Right? It's more or less not about how you dress, even though dressing, presentation is a big part of it. But I know very professional people who don't dress suit and tie all the time, right? It's about how they do work, how they do business, how they treat people, how they look out for people, how they speak, how they advocate, right? These are the things here where they're not looking to perform. You're not looking to impress everyone. Everybody's not going to like you. Everybody's not going to understand what you're saying. It's not about that. It's It's not about everybody's approval. It's about what you're saying out of your mouth. Can it be trusted? Is your character trusted? Are people able to see you and confide in you? Are they able to talk to you? Are they able to feel safe around you? Right? Like, those are the things that make you into a professional. It's not trying to impress. Now, when you get into the room, like we talked about last week, reading the room is important, right? You don't want to go in and just misread everything. But once you have an understanding of the environment, you have an understanding of what's going on around you, it is not meant for you to assimilate to it, right? It's not meant for you to try to impress everyone. At that point, it is meant for you to show up as yourself. It is meant for you to show up as the most honest version of yourself, the most trustworthy version of who you are. And so now, showing up as a professional, showing up as someone, as a young adult, as someone who is in these spaces where people are way older than me or more tenured than me and have much more experience, right? The only thing that I can do as a professional, as someone who is actively working to be a better professional, right? All I can do is show up and be the most honest version of me. All I can do is show up with the most honest and the most reliable and the most trustworthy work. All in all, right? You don't need to impress everyone. You need to be trustworthy. And being trustworthy is something that you become, not perform. So, yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you, as always, for watching. Let me know in the comments how you're bettering yourself to be a professional. Let me know if you're enjoying this little series that we have going on. And yeah, till next time, you guys. Bye.